In the fifth grade, I had to start wearing eyeglasses because, well, quite frankly, no matter where I sat in the room, I couldn't see the board. And so I went to the eye doctor, got my first set of glasses, and one of the things that kept happening every year was my eyesight got worse and worse, progressively worse and worse. I remember it was either the eighth or ninth grade. I was starting to get a little concerned about, like, is it going to get worse and worse for the rest of my life? And I remember talking to my optometrist, Dr. Sullivan, about it. And he said, "No, Brian, you don't need to worry about it." He goes, your eyesight will keep getting worse and significantly worse every year until you hit about the age 21. And then it's going to stabilize, and your prescription for the most part won't change for the rest of your life after that. And I trusted what he had to say, but I have to admit, a little piece of me in the back of my head was a little skeptical about how could you know that with that level of certainty. But the amazing thing was that's exactly what happened. My eyesight got worse and worse and worse and worse. My glasses got thicker and thicker and thicker until I hit age 21, and essentially my prescription hasn't changed a whole lot since then, except now that I have a little harder time seeing things a little closer. But there was a plan. I knew what was going to happen. The same was kind of true with Jesus, if you think about it. Jesus knew what was going to happen in his life, and not because he was God. Remember, his human side and divine side were separate from each other, or are separate from each other, better put. And so when he was walking here on the earth, though he was fully and completely God, the second person of the Trinity, he was still 100% human like us. And so he didn't know everything, like we couldn't necessarily know everything. But yet, he understood what the plan of action was. He understood where God was leading him. He understood what was going to happen. And how did he know that? Quite frankly, the scriptures. They told him exactly what was going to happen. And ultimately, in our own lives, most of us, as we're struggling with life, trying to figure out how to deal with things, trying to figure out how we're supposed to handle things, we're really unsure. We get lost, we get frustrated, we get overwhelmed. And yet we could have the same confidence of knowing what to do, what's coming, how to handle it, if we simply took the lesson from Christ and looked at the scriptures. There are two things that when I think about the scriptures, I kind of think about. One is this acronym I've heard for it. The Bible stands for Basic Instructions Before Leaving Earth. It's our plan. It really, no matter what is happening in your life, trust me, it's happened before. And as Ecclesiastes tells us, there's nothing new under the sun. What's going on in our life, God has handled. God has a way for us to deal with it. God has a way for us to address it. But the other thing is, if we want to have a real relationship with Christ, which is what will keep our lives focused in the way they should be, helping us to sort of move forward the way we should be, the only way we can do that is through the scriptures. As St. Jerome tells us, ignorance of scriptures is ignorance of Christ. We can't really know Jesus if we don't know the scriptures, both the old and the new, because they both speak of Christ. They both speak of the plan. Because remember, when Jesus was looking for the plan of action in his life, there was no New Testament. It was simply the Old Testament and all of the works of the prophets that came before him, all the writings that existed before his human existence. And it's there that he discovered God's plan for his life. And again, God has a plan for all of us. And we need to go to the same place to discover it. And I know for many people, the scriptures can be a really scary thing. They think, oh, no, I can't understand it. But the reality is, it's about simply opening and reading and allowing the Spirit to let you know what it is God's trying to say to you through that. My eye doctor knew exactly what was going to happen. Jesus knew exactly what was going to happen. And he knew because of the scriptures. In our own lives, we can discover its meaning, its purpose, how we're supposed to handle situations, exactly the same way Jesus did. The question is, are we willing to look at the plan? Are we willing to open our hearts to understand God's purpose and intention for our life? Are we willing to look at the basic instructions before leaving Earth?